Okay, go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. So since we're recording, just a quick recap. So in the past, we've done more in-person services through community tax centers. And just because of the COVID environment, that's likely to be very limited this year. So in place of that, we've got several other virtual and kind of socially distanced options that we're offering. And so I want to talk a little bit about those. So the first one is this virtual Vita option. And this is a completely virtual online tax preparation experience where clients can go on to their phone, their tablet, their computer, and get kind of answers to their questions, but they can securely upload all the documents that they need, and it will literally walk them through filling out their tax return. And again, it's no cost, and so they can do this year's return as well as previous year's returns, as well as non-resident returns. So there's a number of different options they can do there. So if you go to the next slide, the other two options are sort of the more socially distanced versions. And the first one is called Vita To Go. And this is in essence a drive-through experience. So the way this works, and you've seen this with everything from like COVID testing to a lot of restaurants, going to curbside pickup. That's kind of what this is like. So this is where people will gather all their tax documents. They'll get in their car and they'll drive to a location, and then they'll stay inside their car, and they'll hand over their documents, and volunteers will go and scan those documents and then bring them back to the person's car, give them the documents back. The person will then go home, and then they'll get probably a phone call from the tax preparer who now has all their documents, and the tax preparer will go through either on the phone or on their computer, whatever they're most comfortable with, and complete the return that way. So that's that option. The other option is a Scan to Go, which is kind of similar, but it is a drop-off service instead of a drive-through. So this is where you kind of get out of your car. Think of it as like the getting takeout at the restaurant, but you take your documents, you drop them off, at the location, and then what'll happen is those documents will go and be prepared off-site, and then kind of the same thing happens where the tax preparer will then get back in touch with the client, go through and complete the return that way. And so we're trying to provide, a number of different options. And so you may be asking, well, okay, so how can I find out about more details on these options? So if you go to the next slide, there's two websites that you can go to. And I'll say real quickly, if you try to go to these right now and click on them, they're not updated just yet. So the tax season services will start toward the end of next week. And so there's still, some working out some of the logistics because of COVID. As you can imagine, some of the things that have been going on, like in schools, for example, those same type of things are going on in community organizations. So they're trying to make sure they've got all of this in place in terms of the volunteers and the tax preparers. But once that's finalized, hopefully the end of this week or first of next week, you can go to these sites and get the information. So as of just a couple of days ago when I checked, the plan is that they would have 4 sites scheduled to open January the 29th, and that they would have additional sites open by February 12th. So most people don't really get all of their tax documents. Those usually come in the mail. They usually come by the end of January, 1st of February. So this is still a good time frame. We're not behind at all. But your best bet is just to check these 2 websites for updated information and schedules. And if you go to the dallastaxcenter.org site, there's information there on how you can sign up for text alerts. That's what I do. That's really the best way to find out, because that way, if there's some last minute changes, you'll just get a text message on your phone and it'll say, hey, here's what's going on. And then if there's more information, it'll give you the link and you can just click on the link. All right, so here's the documents that most people will need to bring with them if they're doing either the Scan to Go or the Vita To Go, or even if they're getting ready to do it on their own on the computer, if they want to use just the fully virtual option. But you'll need to, kind of show your identity. So you're going to need a photo ID, a social security card or an I-10 for you being the person filing the tax return, and then any family members that you're going to claim on your taxes. You'll need the documentation of income, which is typically a W-2 form or a 1099 form. Documentation of expenses paid. So for example, if you're going to itemize or kind of call out on the return, here's the things that I've paid that I think I can deduct off my taxes. You'll just need to provide proof of that. And then we really encourage people to do direct deposit for their refunds. It really is the fastest, safest way to get money back. And if we have learned anything during the pandemic, it is how effective direct deposit can be. And really kind of the perils for people that don't have direct deposit in terms of potential delays. Now we know that the IRS is running as fast as they can during the season, but we also know the IRS has been tasked with doing other things than taxes. So last year there was a whole effort to get economic stimulus checks out to millions and millions of people. This year, the IRS is sending out child tax credit payments early, and so they're sending out those checks. So really, just to prevent those kind of delays, the easiest way to speed up your return is to do direct deposit, and of course, to do that, you'll need to have a check or a deposit slip, with the bank account information and all that. Then it's also helpful if you have last year's tax return, because for many people, in many cases, not a lot changes from year to year. And so you can almost just do not so much a copy and paste, but you can look to make sure that you're covering everything on this year's return that was covered on last year's return. And then also just health insurance documents. If you have health insurance, there's forms that you can provide to show that, to document that. Okay, so why should you go to a free tax preparation service instead of just one of the paid preparers that you see, in storefronts and even in big stores like Walmart and other stores? Well, first off, this really is completely free. There are no paid add-ons. This is not like a bait and switch where you get halfway through and they're like, oh, well, we could get you more money, but that's going to cost you $20 to fill out this form. There's none of that. Absolutely none. There's no upcharges. It's completely free. It's also completely safe. So all the tax preparers are IRS trained and certified. So they know what they're doing. Many of them are retired from the IRS and are doing this as volunteers. And then it saves you money. As mentioned earlier, paid preparer fees are at least $300 or more. Many people pay more than that. But in addition to paying the money, you want to just make sure that you're getting all the tax credits that you qualify for. And so regardless for this service, regardless if you do it online or if you do the virtual options or in person, they're making doubly sure that that you get everything that you're qualified for. The other thing is you can also connect with other financial resources. I say here to save or to pay off debt. But the other thing, going back to what was mentioned earlier, for example, if you or your parents have questions about FAFSA, the federal student financial aid process, particularly in I'm doing my taxes, I want to make sure they're done right because now or in the future, we know we're going to have to do FAFSA. These experts that are doing these taxes can help answer those types of questions as well. And then the last thing is just, it's good for our local economy. Since 2010, since we've been doing this, there's been $192 million in refunds that have come back through this program. And most of that goes to the local economy, because most of that money that comes back, people are spending that, to take care of themselves and their families. And so, so it's really good to be able to capture as much of that money as we can. So with that, I'll stop and just see if there are any questions. I noticed there was a lot of activity in the chat, and I was really looking at the slides, so I have not looked at the chat.
A lot of that was just me, Greg, kind of giving them updates on where they can text to get the text updates and stuff like that.
Okay, good.
Scholars, do you have any questions? You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute and ask. Greg, can you also tell about, you may have said this and I missed it, but the income levels that you have to meet for this?
Yeah, so typically these are for families, households that are making about $60,000 or less. There are some online versions that don't have that restriction. And so that could be an option as well. Basically, what we're trying to do is provide access for everybody, kind of regardless of income, because it's such a needed program, and particularly for people, even if you're if you're in the higher income brackets, but if you're not making deductions and it's just a simple tax return, this is going to be one of the only free options that are out there, because the IRS, you may have read, like, Intuit is sort of phasing out their free offerings through the IRS. And so, so this is really, one of the best and trusted ways, and soon to be probably the only way to get the free type of service.
Awesome. Any other questions, scholars? All right. So okay. I'm gonna stop the recording, and then let's see, stop that.